Hello all, Rick here with a breakdown of a strange vessel that emerged from that lost era of Star Trek between the films and the beginnings of TNG. The Niagara class starship is one of only a few vessels with an uneven number of nacelles, which breaks pre-established design rules, so let's take a look at just what the hell this thing does. Behind the scenes, the class was created as a kit bash for the wreckage of Wolf 359, and like most of those vessels, it featured in the background as a wrecked hulk and not in all its glory. It was created by meshing Galaxy-class components with the Ambassador that had debuted earlier that season. The addition of 3 nacelles was chosen to give it a unique profile, like the Freedom-class USS Firebrand. Originally, design rules were laid down that said that the nacelles needed to be in pairs and maintain unobstructed line of sight. In my opinion, this limits the sort of unique designs that can be made, and I'm alright to see them broken. That being said, I still think the Niagara class looks clunky. It was represented by the wrecked USS Princeton, created by Gregory Jean Inc. In universe, the class was designed from the Ambassador class, as well as importing work from what would become the Galaxy class project, which itself was in the works since 2343. Much tech from the Galaxy project filtered down into others, while it borrowed from still more, and the Niagara was one of these, namely the warp coil design. With the Galaxy class supposedly being the culmination of all Starfleet tech to this point, and a top-of-the-line marvel, they wanted to test many of the systems before its launch. So, someone at Starfleet R&D thought, let's whack 3 nacelles on an Ambassador and fire it off into space. In 2349, the USS Niagara was launched to prototype the class from Utopia Planitia fleet yards, with work provided by Yoyodyne Propulsion Systems, and later models created at Starbase 318. The priority was to ensure that the new nacelle design worked as planned, and it was implemented in a unique tri-pylon design. Because of this, most of the vessel simply began as an Ambassador class, which was a proven design, and the hull served as a good base on which to trial the new system. So, the 2 upper nacelles are the primary ones that generated the warp field, while the third acted as a stabilizer, supplement, and repeater. This allowed the vessel to reach very high warp speeds, for its era, although it could not maintain these, while at the lower speeds it could ease the burden on its warp coils, allowing for theoretically infinite cruise times. Nevertheless, it proved that the new nacelles worked, so they were greenlit for the Galaxy class and even several other derivations. In addition to the warp nacelles, the sensor systems of the Galaxy were tested on the Niagara class too, with the saucer requiring the elongation comparable to the Galaxy, replacing the Ambassador's one with a new style. However, with all the new systems being implemented, they were not as small and packed away as the Galaxy classes would be, meaning that much of the Niagara's internal volume was filled with expansive equipment. With the focus on speed and propulsion, the classification was a Federation fast cruiser, the only one of its type. A limited run was produced in 2358 with the intent to replace the duties of ships like the Constellation class, which engaged in border patrols and long-ranging survey missions. The Niagara was a decent marathon runner, maintaining moderate warp for as long as it had fuel, but thanks to its third nacelle it could burst at high warp to cover a lot of distance. Bit of a different way to accomplish the same thing. In terms of scale, it was 565 metres long, which makes it around 375 wide and 172 metres tall. It had a crew capacity of 530, with a maximum of 1,650 and an emergency limit of 3,500 across 16 decks. It was capable of saucer separation, but reattaching was not an easy affair that required either a starbase or at least a squadron of worker bees to reattach and rewire the severed connections. Around the 2370s, the class received a refit program to improve its abilities, but it would not last long beyond this. Its cruising warp speed was warp 6 and later warp 7, while it could accelerate to warp 9.6 and hold that for around 6 hours before engine shutdown. This means that it was faster than the Galaxy class was when that class initially entered service, but it could not sustain that 9.6 for very long, making it a bit of a sprinter. However, it maintained only a single small impulse engine, meaning it was not particularly adroit at sublight speeds either. Its armaments included 10 Type 7 phaser arrays, which were later upgraded to Type 9. However, I count 11 placements. And 4 torpedo launchers, 2 fore and 2 aft, for standard loadouts of the time. Interesting thing of note is that the layout of the phasers basically mirrored the placement of the Ambassador class. It carried a small shuttle bay at the rear of the vessel, based on the Ambassador's. However, it had less volume to work with thanks to the additional engine components. Overall, while initially created as a testbed for the Galaxy class's sensors and nacelles, the design sort of worked out well enough that Starfleet went ahead with commissioning a few more as a stopgap to fill out their fleet and replace the aging Constellation. Now, the Cheyenne class would emerge around the same time, and then the Galaxy would launch, and the Nebula took on the role of the longer-range survey vessel, making the Niagara class eventually redundant. Despite this, it was a workable ship that got a little more love and upgrading over its life to keep those that were still active around. And the unique 3-nacelle design maintained its usefulness as a rapid transport and responder for longer than was probably expected of it. Thanks for watching this breakdown on the Niagara class. Not bad for a background mashup of Ambassador and Galaxy components, and I like seeing how it fits into the lore as one of the many unintended offshoots of the Galaxy class project. I've been Rick, thanks again for watching, and goodbye.